What is up, guys? You've asked, you've waited, you've asked again, and you've waited again, but finally, I'm back with No Sleep number 3. Welcome back to Late Night, Episode 3, r/No Sleep. I hope you enjoy. Who will I be today? Who will I be today? Husband? Bachelor? Widower? Divorced? Single dad? No, you don't understand. That's a serious question. I no longer know who I'm going to be when I wake up in the morning. It started... Damn, I don't even know when it started. Days don't run in order. Let me try to explain. Days? Weeks? Years? No. Let's go with sometime in the past. I was having a discussion with a few friends over one too many beers. One of them, the name doesn't matter, started whining again about how if only he'd done something different, his wife wouldn't have divorced him. He's been divorced about 2 years, so it's about the 500th time he's been down this road. I had just read Stephen Hawking's book about the big questions. In one of the chapters, he starts from the idea that quantum physics is all about probabilities instead of certainties, and expands it out to the idea that there is no physical reason that there can't be billions of parallel universes. So I told my buddy that if it had shut him up, I'd go find a time machine so he could fix all the mistakes he'd wasted so many beers complaining about. Then I went home, a lifelong bachelor. The next morning, I woke up. It wasn't my room. It was a rather well-furnished bedroom. Skylight, artwork on the walls, furniture I couldn't afford. Okay, so I guess I had more than I thought last night, but I can talk my way. And then I rolled over. To a face I've known all my life. The girl I broke up with in my freshman year of college. The one who was always the one that got away. But it wasn't her. I mean, it was. I'll never forget that face. Her face. Asleep. 3 inches away from me. Aged just a little. In a king bed that wasn't my own. I panicked. I bolted out of bed like I'd seen a ghost. Good thing she was as deep of a sleeper as she was in college, and it was kind of early, I think. I walked around this house that both was and wasn't mine. I mean, I knew who I was. I knew I'd broken up with her 15 years ago, but there she was, in our bed. How much had I drank last night? And then I saw them. The pictures, in our living room. A girl, maybe 12, so clearly her kid. And a boy who looked a lot like the dork I was at 10, but with her hair. What the hell? I sat in a recliner that felt far too comfortable. I closed my eyes and flashed through memories of this life I'd never lived. The fight that broke us up in college? We talked instead of arguing. We stayed together. 2 years later, the surprise senior year pregnancy. We got married. Added a son. I got serious about my work, pursued the opportunities that the bachelor me hadn't. It was the life I always wanted. Fortunately, I had enough time to reacclimate that so that when she woke up, I was able to explain it as a restless night. She was radiant, so real. There. Mine. I asked her if she wanted to play hooky for a day. I sold it well. In my reality, before we broke up, she said I was never spontaneous. So why not try being spontaneous now? If this was a dream, I could at least enjoy it. We played tourist for the day. It's amazing, really. I found out that President Clinton was in the middle of her first term. Okay, so even politics works out right in my dreams. It was a great day. As it wound down, I figured this was one hell of a lucid dream that I couldn't wait to share with my buddies. It was great. My kids are terrific. We all had dinner together. I took us out to celebrate nothing. And of course, one guess how the night ended before I drifted off to sleep. I was home. A happily married man. The next morning, I woke up. Cold and wet, and as I looked down, very, very grimy. A quick survey of my surroundings found no wife, no kids, no house, just a blanket, a shopping cart, and a large and angry man pawing through it. I jumped up. right into the knife he was holding. Did you know that a knife wound is both painful and warm? Must be the blood. I wonder what I did to get here. I died. A bum in a nameless alley. The next morning, somehow, I woke up. That surprised me since I vividly remembered what it felt like to die last night. I won't bore you with too many details. A lot of them are gone. I'd wake up, live, or die a different life. The cast of characters was different each morning. Some familiar, like other ex-girlfriends or buddies popping up in weird places, and some that I had to stop and try to figure out. Most days, the memories were there waiting for me. There was the one day where I was in a committed relationship with the guy who I was going to order the time machine for. That really surprised me. But here's the thing. Each day reset with sleep, unconsciousness, or death. I tried my damnedest to stay up some nights to see if I could capture the change. I always wound up dozing off just for a second. I never have seen the slip between universes. And I now think I know that I'm a traveler of some kind, lost amongst an infinite number of possibilities. Here's the thing. Like I said when I started, the days aren't running in order. There's probably a pattern, but I haven't found it. I'm drifting forward in time, but it's a day or two forward, then back one, ahead two, back three. Overall, I'm definitely moving forward, but I'm not aging. It's been at least 400 days, but I don't think I've aged more than a month. Over 400 lives and more than a few deaths. Over 400 sets of memories. They're all hazy now. I remember the first couple of lives, the ones I told you about. I guess fear and surprise does that. But after a while, they run together. I've been married, for a day, to at least 50 women, some on one day, some on several. I've had affairs with others, including a different version of the woman I was married to on day one. I've been, hell, just about everything you can imagine, and a few you can't. I just haven't been the guy I was when this started. I never have dropped back into my life. I mean, my first life. Damn, I don't know what I mean. You'd think that I'd somehow wind up back where I started, wouldn't you? Yesterday, I was married to my 6th grade girlfriend. She never moved away in middle school, this time. We adopted because she can't have kids. It breaks my heart because they're adorable. And then I went to sleep. They won't be waiting for me this morning. I wonder who or what will. I tapped this out on the phone I found on my end table after I woke up this morning, so there'd be a record. I have no idea if I'll ever see that phone or this post again, but I wanted someone, somewhere, to know what was going on. Well, I can't stall any longer. It's time to get out of this bed. At least it's a bed, and I know I'm alone in it. And find out which of my infinite sets of me I'll be today. Maybe I'll finally be home. And when you wake up in another dimension the next day, what happens to the life you lived previously? Were you occupying another's body? Simply possessing a parallel version of yourself? Do the memories of that one day carry on with the character that calls that universe home, or was it like you were never even there? I know it might seem strange that you haven't been led back to your home timeline, the people, places, and decisions you remember making, but when you put theoretical physics like Hawking does, it's a game of probability, and out of the billions and billions of possible universes, why should you wake up in your own? Think of me. My name is Dennis Majors. I'm 37 years old. I'm unemployed and don't have any real friends or family. No one to miss me. That's why I need you. I've been going somewhere, but also nowhere. I wake up and I'm in my apartment, but it's not my apartment. None of this makes sense, I know, but it's hard to explain. The best way I can describe it is that it feels off. Like when you're looking at one of those pictures that seems fine at first, but you realize there's stuff wrong with it the longer you stare. I noticed the photos first. I keep a few in my living room. I'm in 1 or 2 of them, or I was. When I'm in this other apartment that looks just like mine, I'm not in those photos. I don't have a reflection either. I barely remember my own name. It's like I don't exist. It's been happening more and more frequently lately. Let me back up. Maybe that will help you understand. Maybe not. I lost my job about 6 months ago. After I was laid off from the plant, I stopped going out. I don't like going out. I don't like people. Without a job, there was no point. I can just order pretty much whatever I need online. I was getting unemployment, and I have all my bills set to autopay, so I don't have to worry about it. No one called to check in on me, no one dropped by. Basically, I'd managed to avoid just about all contact with the outside world. I thought it was fine. I've never minded being alone. Sometimes, most of the time, it's preferable. Others cause a lot of grief. After so long and so much of it, I was happy to be by myself. Well, happy. It was as close to the word as I could get, I think. I was still alive at any rate. And then I started waking up in that other place. The one that's mine, but not. Where I don't have pictures or a reflection. The TV and radio are static. Sometimes I think I can hear something. It's not quite a voice, but it's close to one. I don't know what it's trying to say. The first time I realized something was off, I went to a few doors on my floor and knocked. No answer. The entire building felt silent. Oppressive and muted, like a giant blanket had been dropped over it. Usually I could hear cars and stuff from the street below, but not then. I didn't have the guts to go outside that time. Or the next. Or the next. I stayed in my apartment trying to fall back asleep so I could wake up in my real apartment. I'd never know which version I'd find myself in. How do you tell people something like that without sounding like a lunatic? On welfare, a recluse, thinks his apartment suddenly changes while he sleeps. It's the perfect combo to point to absolute nutcase. Maybe I am, but I don't feel crazy. Does anyone? So I endured it. While it was sporadic to start, the longer I stayed alone in the real world, I don't know how else to differentiate between them, the more frequent it became. I finally found the courage to leave my floor, but still didn't find anyone, so I went outside. It was overcast out there. It always is. And the quiet doesn't change. Cities aren't meant to be empty. I still recognize the storefronts and the familiar cars parked in the same spots they always used to, but the doors don't open, and there are no people. At least, not many of them. I've only found a handful when I'm there, and only a couple of them still qualify as people. This place does something to them. To us. There's a lady who is always standing on the corner of Park and 7th. I avoid her if I can. She's got this mummified look. No meat to her, just leathery skin and bone. Almost all of her hair has fallen out. She moans a lot, like she's hurting. I've never heard her speak. She just stands there clinging to the road sign, moaning. There's a man on 36th. He's sitting in an alley. He looks worse off than the park lady. Can barely hold his head up. Because he seemed weaker and unable to chase me on his stick-thin legs, I tried to talk to him. He reached for me, groaning in this awful, dusty sort of way. His eyes were sunk so far into his skull, I thought they'd just roll inward and disappear into black holes. That was all he could do. Reach and groan and stare with dry, bloodshot eyes. I found another woman on the stoop of a coffee shop. She's still young, a bit younger than me, but has a weathered look to her. Like she's slowly drying out. The first stages of becoming like the park lady and the alley man. She didn't seem surprised to see me when I walked up to her, just sad. I think we traded names, but I can't remember what she said hers was. I wish I could. Maybe it'd help her. I asked her what was going on. "You're alone," she said. She had a raspy voice. I told her I was, that I wanted to get out. "You're being forgotten," she told me. "Just like the rest of us." I asked her how long she'd been there. "What year is it?" She stared ahead when she spoke, unfocused. I told her. "It's 2019. She shook her head. It was slow and painful. She said it was March 2017, that it would always be March 2017 for her. I said I didn't understand. "The forgotten have to go somewhere," she told me. "When the world doesn't know you're in it, you get pushed out. You come here, and the longer you're here, the less there you are until you're not there at all. You don't get to go back until you're remembered." I left her sitting there, hugging herself. How do you respond to that? I was scared. I didn't want to stay in that place. I went back to my apartment and tried to force myself to sleep so I could wake up in the real world again, but I just laid there, thinking about what she'd said. We were forgotten, and this is where we wait to be found. Eventually, I managed to drift off, and when I woke, there was sound and sunlight and life. I'd come back. For now. There's not much to research about this forgotten place, at least that I could find. What I did find was lists and news reports of people who slip through the cracks and vanish, some for years at a time, without anyone questioning it or looking for them. The most famous case is probably Joyce Vincent's. She was an English woman who simply disappeared for almost 3 years before her skeletal remains were found in her apartment. There are a lot like her though. Christina Copeman, James Gales, Albertina Rambla. All of them left for weeks, months, even longer before being discovered. People ask how something like that can happen. I think I know. They were like me. Alone, no one to think of them. No one to remember them. And so the world pushed them out into that stifled, silent place where all you can do is wait. And they stayed there until one day someone remembered them. But by then, they'd been away too long and all that came back was a withered corpse. I don't want that to be me. I don't want to keep slipping further away until I'm stuck, rotting, waiting for death. I want to be remembered. My name is Dennis Majors. Please, think of me. This isn't about being remembered post-mortem, this is about being included while still alive. If nobody in the entire world is thinking about you, do you really exist? I'm sure that Neil Shusterman would have a word or two on the subject, but that's not what we're here for. When you wake up again, free from that other place, do you remember the encounters you had? The people you saw, or does it not matter? At that point, what happens when the young woman from the porch wakes up? Do the police finally discover her shriveled corpse 2 years after she disappeared? Or maybe she wakes up in her own timeline, 2 years before the protagonist walked up to her. Everyone thinks about being remembered after they die, but they might be overlooking what could happen if everyone forgets that they're still alive. I can see what you can't. I can see them. No, not the monsters under your bed, and not the thing in your closet either. I'm not talking about urban legends here. I'm talking about them. The ones who are really watching you. I'm not talking about that creak in the floorboards or the moans coming from the pipes. I'm not talking about those unexplainable phantom noises you think you hear. I'm talking about the feeling they give you. The uneasiness that begins to set in. When you know that you're alone, but you can't resist the urge to turn around just to double check. The furtive glances you take over your shoulder as you walk back to your car late at night. You might not know why, or maybe you convince yourself that it's all in your head. Well, I have some good news for you. You're not crazy, you just can't see them. Oh, but they're there. You'll know. When the hair stands up on the back of your neck and a shiver sends goosebumps up and down your arms, they're probably closer than you think. It's when you wake up in a cold sweat, but a minute later you can't remember why. It's when soft moonlight filters in through your bedroom window, but one square of carpet lays in perfect shadow. It's when you see a shadow out of the corner of your eye, but can't seem to find what cast it. I can't exactly describe them to you. You wouldn't really understand. It's not really about seeing them even, it's about knowing where they are. Knowing what and who they're watching. Usually, well, it's you. I can't promise they're there right now, but I can promise that they have been, and I can promise that they will be. Trust me, though, you don't want to see them. It'll just make things worse. But remember that they're there. When you used to turn the lights off and run to your bed, you weren't afraid of the dark. You were afraid of what the dark might be hiding. You might have outgrown that habit, but you probably shouldn't have. I can promise that they haven't outgrown you. Some people think they can see them. If you look into the dark long enough, you might convince yourself of that as well. I don't mean a dark room, I mean darkness. Black. True black. A darkness so deep that your eyes search for their own meaning and still come up empty-handed. You can stare at it for as long as you please, but When you get just nervous enough, just anxious enough to look away, they'll be there. I'm not sure when you'll see them. It might be tomorrow. It might be in 10 years. It might be in 100. That's none of my concern. It really doesn't matter if you can see them. All that matters is that right now, I can see you. I think I need to end with that. I can't really seem to concentrate anymore. I keep looking around my room feeling like I'm missing something, like there's something or someone there, but I just can't make it out. Maybe I'll catch it out of the corner of my eye, or maybe it'll be lurking in the shadows of my closet. I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure that it's them.